AB is a healthy 65-year-old female with no prior medical history who presents to an orthopedician with a history of recent onset back pain after a minor trauma in a public bus. Other than the pain, she feels well, does not have any significant complaint. Physical exam is normal except for painful restriction of bending movements and some tenderness over T12 or L1 vertebra. T12 and L1 vertebra. There is no neurodeficit noted. Has been advised an MRI of the spine by the orthopedician. So what does this show? There is a compression fracture of T12 vertebra with a wedge deformity. So for the students, what do you think was done next? Yes? Any suggestions? To go into the orthopedician's mind and think what the orthopedician did. So in spite of our repeated efforts, we have not been able to get a complete blood count requisition from the orthopedicians. So it's hemoglobin, PCDC, ESR. Okay, no problem. Calcium alkaline phosphatase, urea creatinine, LFT, BT-CT. In spite of us telling that it's of no use, CT we do not do in our institute for the last 12 years because it gives you a false sense of responsibility. Vitamin D3 was estimated, and you know, I do not know whether it's because of technology or it's really, we all are vitamin D deficient. And then also a serum protein electrophoresis and a bone densitometry DEXA scan. So I'll just show you the protein electrophoresis. And what is this? This is what we call an M band in the gamma region. Okay. Now this basically is a densitometric scanning. The actual electrophoresis strip is this. So once you get this, patient is referred to a hematologist, comes to me and my colleagues, and what we do is, the next step, we do a serum protein immunofixation. Now, you know, there are subtle changes in terminology here. Electrophoresis can just show you whether there is a wide band or a narrow band. But you cannot say whether it's monoclonal unless you can prove the monoclonality. So for proving monoclonality, you can either order a serum protein immunofixation, or in certain centers you can just write immunofixation electrophoresis. So they do both. Now here what you see is, we are using antibodies against IgG, IgA, IgM, kappa and lambda, and this is giving discrete bands at IgG and kappa. So this is definitely a monoclonal band, and the nature is IgG kappa. What does the hematologist do next? What we are good at? Bone marrow aspiration and refined biopsy. Plasma cells not increased. Sometimes my colleagues in the Department of Pathology get angry why we always ask for a refined biopsy. The thing is that per se multiple myeloma can be a focal disease. So aspirate can be perfectly normal, but when you do a refined biopsy, you can see clusters of plasma cells. But in this case, even if you look at the biopsy, it does not show increased plasma cells. If there are increased plasma cells, you look at C and D, then this, you cannot see it well here anyway, this is a slide I have taken from American Association for Cancer Research. But if you do a chronology study with CD138, you will see definite plasma cells which are positive. In this case, biopsy also did not show increased plasma cells. We did a skeletal survey. Other than that wedge fracture, there was nothing, no lytic lesions. So we always look for this. And in this case, none of them were present except that fracture with a wedge deformity. So what is the diagnosis of this patient? Where are my present students? Diagnosis key. Yes, someone you wanted to stand up, you can answer sitting also. But you have to tell something. Is it myeloma or not? No. Why?
No anemia, no serum.
No serum. There is no monoclonal protein. There is monoclonal protein. So, why are you worried about the serum? What is the criteria for diagnosis of myeloma?
Plasma cells greater than 10.
Plasma cells increased or clonal plasma cells either in the marrow or in a suspected lesion, because it can be a plasmacytoma. A monoclonal band quantity is not important, and CRAB. Now, if you take that fracture to be a pathological fracture, then CRAB is also present. So why do you think it's not a myeloma? Because we have not been able to document increased plasma cells. So what we did next was we put in the needle in that particular area and it showed some blood cells without increase in plasma cells. So now what the diagnosis is? The diagnosis is something to prove our illiteracy, our lack of understanding. Okay, we have certain diseases in every field and this is one of them. We are proud to say that it's a monoclonal gammopathy of undetermined significance. We used to call it unknown, now we say undetermined, but basically we do not know. But what we have understood is that these patients are a definite group who might or might not require treatment. So I'll just go into certain logistics. Obviously you will find problems in reading it, but there are three types of MGUS. One is non-IgM MGUS, which is the commonest. It might be like this patient has IgG kappa. For this, the monoclonal protein should be less than 3. What was the monoclonal protein quantification here? Does any one of you remember? I'll go back and show you the curve. Yeah. So what is it? 1.84. Okay. So this is less than 3. Then clonal bone marrow plasma cells less than 10%. She fulfills the criteria. And absence of end organ damage, which I told you, is CRAB. So renal insufficiency, CRAB is calcium, renal insufficiency, anemia and bone lesions that can be attributed to it. Now there is another disease which you can see here. This is smoldering. This is another terminology we use where we sometimes treat the patients. And here the monoclonal protein is more than 3. The plasma cell percentage is more than 10, but there is no CRAB. So basically, presence of CRAB, irrespective of the amount of monoclonal protein, is myeloma. If there is no CRAB, but it is more than 3 and more than 10%, it's smoldering. That is enough. IgM MGUS, similar. Only thing is, we do not call it smoldering myeloma then. We call it smoldering Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia, and if the criteria like IgM is present more than 10% lymphoplasmacytic cells and evidence of anemia, constitutional symptoms, hyperviscosity, lymphadenopathy or hepatosplenomegaly. Commonest is either anemia, cytopenias or hyperviscosity. Then this same patient becomes Waldenstrom. Okay. And there is another group of MGUS which is known as light chain, where there is no change in IgG, IgM, IgA or IgB, but the serum free light chain ratio is abnormal and there is clonal bone marrow plasma cell less than 10%, CRAB is absent. Now if there is significant urinary protein more than 500 mg per 24 hours and if plasma cells are more than 10%, then we use a term to honor original Baines-Jones, we call it idiopathic Baines-Jones proteinuria. But in same patient, if this patient has CRAB, she is labeled as light chain multiple myeloma. Enough of semantics. So why does she have MGUS? MGUS is actually a pre-malignant plasma cell disorder present in 3% of the general Caucasian population aged 50 years and older. African Americans and blacks from Africa have a 2 to 3-fold higher prevalence. I do not know about Indians, no community-based data till now, but even after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we know that Japan has data to show that it is not high in population, but there are certain factors. And what are those factors, even in the general population, which can lead to MGUS? One is, as I told you, increasing age. If you are 60 or 70 years old, you have a higher chance of having MGUS, and so a higher chance of developing myeloma. If you have a family history, if you are continuously on immunosuppression, and if you are exposed to certain pesticides, which we all are, and especially our farmers are. I was talking to you about the Nagasaki data. It is seen that even in this population, significant lower overall prevalence, significantly higher prevalence in men, again age-related, and people who were exposed to higher radiation dose, among those aged more than 20 years, we have seen a significantly higher prevalence. But we do not see much of IgM in Japan. And remember that monoclonal gammopathy per se does not mean myeloma, because MGUS has confirmed and reported associations with numerous diseases, even osteoporosis and venous thrombosis. It can be associated with heavy chain diseases, amyloidosis, CLL, B-cell lymphomas, post-transplant lymphoproliferative disorder, and a host of collagen vascular diseases like SLE, rheumatoid arthritis, MCDD, scleroderma, psoriatic arthritis, and 1 or 2 associations are reported every month. So, don't jump to the conclusion of myeloma if you get a monoclonal. Now, this patient has supposedly MGUS. So, what will happen to her in future? She has a 1% annual risk of progression to multiple myeloma or Waldenstrom. But because she has IgG kappa, so she has a 1% per year chance of developing myeloma. Because it has been shown by a Scandinavian study that multiple myeloma is consistently preceded by MGUS, we might not pick them. So of the approximately 77,400 healthy adults in the United States who were observed for 10 years, 71 of them develop multiple myeloma. This is what a community-based study should be anyway. But diseases never follow the textbook, so it might be that MGUS becomes smoldering and becomes myeloma, but it might be MGUS remains MGUS and then one fine morning suddenly becomes myeloma, or it might be it becomes smoldering, remains for a long time and then suddenly becomes myeloma. So what we need to know is that this is an entire spectrum of diseases. On one hand is plasma cell leukemia, which is the worst, where the plasma cells are there in peripheral blood. They do not need the bone marrow mafia to thrive. If they need the bone marrow mafia to thrive, then it's myeloma, and previous to it is MGUS, and we have identified certain translocations which might predispose to transformation, but we actually don't know who will transform. So what happens is, there is some degree of genomic instability coupled with microenvironmental changes, which turns a normal cell to MGUS, and then when their NRAS, KRAS and methylation changes, this is for your theory paper answering, the medicine postgraduates, you can put them anywhere, because these are the things which go wrong and then you have a malignancy. So basically we think it's a double hit process. Now, how do we re-stratify them? Because we know that some people will progress, some people will not progress. If we look at the Mayo Clinic data, this is one which is in blue and the other is Spanish Pithema data. Risk factors are when M protein is more than 1.5, which this lady has. If it's non-IgG, which this lady does not have, and if there is altered free light chain ratio. So free light chain ratio, you'll see we order it a number of times. We usually order it if we are suspecting myeloma, but we are getting nothing on electrophoresis, and there might be a faint band or no band on immunofixation. But this is the earliest to detect that there is a monoclonal gammopathy. So if all three risk factors are present, there is a 76% chance of 5-year progression. It no longer remains 1% per year. But if they are absent, then 5-year progression to smoldering myeloma, 5-year progression from MGUS is just, as I told you, 5%, 1% per year. So how do we treat this lady? Current standard of care dictates that we don't treat. But we should definitely see whether we are missing something. They should not receive any treatment outside clinical trials. She is a low risk patient as IgG kappa and SFLC ratio is normal. But we can do a baseline bone marrow examination if patient has unexplained anemia, renal insufficiency, hypercalcemia or skeletal lesions. Now this lady, we do not know whether it was due to that bus suddenly applying brakes or it was a pathological fracture. So we did a marrow, we did the correct thing, we didn't find anything. Patient should be followed up with electrophoresis every 6 months. After diagnosis and if stable, can be followed every 2 to 3 years. And if you feel that the patient is developing something new, you can do it more frequently. Most importantly, don't lose this patient to follow. But for intermediate or high risk, you should do cytogenetics and follow them up more frequently. For smoldering myeloma, you should do a bone marrow biopsy because you will see more than 10% plasma cells, mandatory skeletal survey, and remember we say that MRI is better at picking up bone lesions. Median time to progression is significantly shorter with an abnormal MRI compared with a normal MRI. 1.5 years versus 5 years. And if all these values are stable, you can follow every 6 to 12 months. Again, I showed you that if they are non-IgG and if they have a high monoclonal protein, which they will have, and if they have an abnormal free light chain ratio, then they fall into the high risk group. So the treatment goals in smoldering myeloma is you can give some sort of maintenance treatment so that it does not progress, or you can wait until the disease progresses. There are a number of trials going on, but the standard of care at this point of time is do not treat smoldering myeloma. So as far as we are concerned, we treat only myeloma. But there are certain other diseases, and I will only discuss one of them, and that ends my talk. This is not MGUS. This is monoclonal gammopathy of renal significance. Means you're not getting increased plasma cells, but your kidney has been badly damaged. So this is monoclonal gammopathy of renal significance, which actually needs treatment. They can be of various types, like myeloma cast nephropathy due to light chain amyloidosis, or tubulopathy with or without Fanconi syndrome, or crystal storing histiocytosis. Means somehow the kidney has been damaged because of the monoclonal protein. This is a new entity, and this, if you find someone has monoclonal protein, someone has renal disease, please search for amyloidosis. This is the take-home message. Just a word about FLC ratio. It can detect abnormality far earlier than when our electrophoresis detects it. So if the technology is there, you can detect the monoclonality early, and we often, debate as to which test should be sent. Remember, if you are sending only serum protein electrophoresis, the sensitivity is only 80.8%. So you can miss around 19 to 20%. Urine immunofixation actually is 100% sensitive, but it is cumbersome. And it is better to order urine protein electrophoresis 24 hours. But if you combine serum free light chain ratio with serum protein electrophoresis, then the sensitivity becomes almost 100%, because serum free light chain ratio has a sensitivity of 99.5%. But remember that it is best for light chain myeloma and it is good for amyloidosis, but it might not pick up MGUS in the earlier stages. But we are hardly bothered because we will not treat. I think this is too busy, I will not go into it. We have already discussed. Today, the plasma cell dyscrasias are a whole spectrum of diseases. You can see one half and then the other half. Don't worry, I will take you through this slide. MGUS is in the middle. If it's a standard so-called progression, then it goes through intermediate high risk, then it goes through smoldering myeloma, end organ damage, multiple myeloma. But the other half, which is now more visible here, it can have monoclonal gammopathy of renal significance, which includes amyloidosis and light chain disease. It can have amyloidosis per se, and it can lead to irreversible end organ damage. It depends on the patient when he or she will come to you, and it depends on you as to how you look at the patient. Thank you. I now invite questions.